Hi, my name is Alexis. I'll be responding to Devin Monroe's claim of smoking tobacco should be illegal. He supports this claim by two secondary claims of 1, cigarettes and cigars cause pollution, and 2, cigarettes and cigars are bad for public health. First off, in response to the claim, Mr. Monroe actually fails to present an actual claim of fact. Instead, he presents a claim of policy. Because it is a claim of policy, we must look at secondary claims that address the policy itself. One would be making tobacco illegal is irrational, and 2, making tobacco illegal tremendously affects the economy. In addressing the first point of making tobacco illegal is irrational, the U.S. Supreme Court has said many times in numerous cases against smoking or making smoking illegal that there is no constitutional right for smokers, and therefore fundamentally individual rights are not violated. However, as long as regulation is rational, they have said that they will not make it illegal. Making smoking illegal would cause more regulations than needed, as you would have to ensure that there are no black market sales, more law enforcement to stop the smoking, and you would also have to put laws into place to punish those who would break the law, which would mean that you would have to put more money and effort in than would come out of it. Second, making tobacco illegal would tremendously affect the economy. As in 2000, the USDA did a study showing that $59 billion are spent on tobacco products a year. Another survey done in 2009 by a tax policy website says that the U.S. would make $17 million in tax revenue from tobacco sales. Last but not least, making tobacco illegal destroys the job market, as farmers, farmer workers, manufacturers, and retail businesses would be put out of business, especially the specialty shops, which their main purpose is to sell tobacco products alone. Therefore, the U.S. would lose money and jobs by making it illegal. In response to Mr. Monroe's secondary claims, there is actually no controversy here. He actually just states just facts. In the first one, cigarettes and cigars cause pollution, it is a true fact. To update numbers that he had presented, he had said 38% of the worldwide debris in an ocean cleanup was caused by not only cigarette butts, but other numerous pollution. The EPA did a cleanup in 2010 and collected 9.8 million pounds of debris, and 80% of it was considered plastic, bags, cigarette butts, and food containers. He would have had an argument and a controversy if he had stated how much cigarette butts themselves actually cause pollution. In his secondary claims, cigarettes and cigars are bad for public health, it actually is also stating a fact, as tobacco companies are even admitting to it themselves on their websites, such as R.J. Reynolds, which is one of the top 2 tobacco companies. They state on their site that no tobacco product has been shown to be safe and without risk, and quitting smoking use significantly reduces the risk of serious diseases. Some have even stated on their websites that it causes cancer. Therefore, it is because of this evidence that Mr. Monroe does not present a claim of fact, and because both secondary claims are statements of fact that do not contain controversy, that we should reject his speech in entirety.
Thank you. Well, I like the idea of the opening section where you, in essence, argue that we've got a claim of policy here, and so we have the right to argue additional elements that are related to the policy claim. On the argument about it being irrational, I think that the court ruling that you're citing seems to suggest that smokers don't have any constitutional right to smoke. I'm not sure that that means that it would be irrational to abolish smoking and deny them a right that they don't have. I think that that's a little bit confusing. The argument that there would be substantial complications from the regulation, I think that that's a reasonable thing to talk about, and what the complications of those regulations would be, how intricate they would have to be. I think you can make an argument that that is in fact irrational. Now, the economic consequences, I think, become a disadvantage to the argument that's being presented, and I think you do a pretty good job illustrating that it's a substantial industry, $59 billion. The tax data that you have, you said 17 million, but I think you probably meant 17 billion, because my guess is that, you know, what's that? Yeah, that just doesn't make much sense, because, I mean, I'm going 17 million. California, probably LA County gets $17 million from taxes on cigarettes. So I think maybe you read the number wrong or something. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at your data. I'm going to look at the outline and see. Because to me, that seems like if you could show that it's $17 billion, for instance, well, that's $17 billion in government revenue that's not going to be available for doing particular kinds of projects, especially health-related projects, which is what they spend most of the tax money on. And you could show that that would be another negative consequence of getting rid of this particular product. The other thing that I think that you could do is, you know, we're going to be talking about this when we talk about policy arguments. That's going to be the next project. So it might have been a good idea to come and talk to me about this a little bit ahead of time. But you could argue that there are plenty of ways to mitigate these things without requiring us to abolish smoking outright. Let's face it, we have been mitigating smoking for the past 30 years substantially. The number of people who smoke today is a fraction of what smoked back in 1970, 1980, you know, and the numbers keep going down for the most part. And we've been able to manage that without abolishing smoking, but by imposing regulations, increasing taxes, increasing education, do training, making opportunities available for people to quit smoking, all those sorts of things. And you could simply argue that instead of making it illegal, all we need to do is continue these policies, and ultimately the problem is going to get smaller and smaller as time goes by, so it's not really going to be as big an argument. I do think that you have a good challenge. Well, you kind of make it as a criticism of the argument that the advocate made, like you're doing an evaluation of his argument instead of a response to the argument. It says, well, his evidence would have been so much better if it had said how much of the pollution, for instance, was cigarette butts. That should be your claim. His evidence doesn't say how much of it is cigarette butts, and so we don't have any idea how significant this environmental impact is. That's the way you want to make that claim, so it's a declarative claim contradicting the advocate's position as opposed to sounding like you're giving him advice about how to do a better speech. That's not really the goal that you're looking for. And on the other 2 points, I think you've got a perfectly legitimate argument. Look, nobody is disputing that there are negative health consequences, so this is not really an argument. R.J. Reynolds, the second largest manufacturer of tobacco products in the country, has it on their own website that says all these things, and I think that really does a good job dissipating the idea that there's any dispute on that second point. All right, thank you very much.